It's Monday, June 15. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. As at Monday morning, Jamaica has 617 COVID-19 cases. The 2 new cases were reported on the weekend: a 35-year-old man of St. James Address and a 61-year-old woman from Kingston and St. Andrew. Both returned to the island from Florida recently. Jamaica has 187 active cases of COVID-19, with 2 people considered critically ill. 6 flights from carriers JetBlue, American Airlines and Delta Airlines are scheduled to land at the Kingston International Airport today as Jamaica reopens its tourism sector nearly 3 months after closing its borders as the novel coronavirus pandemic devastated world economies. Passengers will be a mix of tourists and Jamaicans returning home. We get more in this report.
Furnishings have been rearranged, temperature check technology has been fine-tuned, an area has been designated for COVID-19 testing of travelers prior to their departure from the airport to homes or vacation spots. Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett, after a walkthrough of the facilities on Sunday, expressed confidence that adequate systems have been put in place for the reopening of the tourism industry. Also over the weekend, Prime Minister Andrew Holness outlined the testing and quarantine protocols for nationals and tourists entering the country.
Non-national tourists will be subject to testing if they are assessed as high risk, either as a result of coming from countries designated as high risk for COVID-19 transmission based on classifications by the World Health Organization, or due to other risk factors such as exhibiting symptoms, exposure to persons, or coming from a high-risk group. Persons assessed as high risk would have their samples taken at the airport or other designated facility and await their test results at their hotel or resort under the stay-in-zone measure. If the test is negative, they would remain under the stay-in-zone measure. If the test is positive, however, they would be isolated, either at the hotel resort or in a government facility as determined by the health authorities. Persons not assessed as high risk will be allowed to go to their hotel resorts under the stay-in-zone measure. This means they are required, for the duration of their stay in Jamaica, to remain within the COVID-19 resilient corridor, a defined geographical area from Negril to Portland along the main road. Only hotels and resort cottages, as defined in the Tourist Board Act, and which are licensed under that act and then certified by the TPDCO, will be allowed to open during the period June 15 to 30, 2020.
While admitting that the reopening carried inherent risks, Mr. Holness was quick to point out that the safety concerns had to be balanced with economic necessity. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In the meantime, over 8,000 applications have been approved under the JAM COVID-19 system. Prime Minister Andrew Holness addressed the issue at a virtual press conference last Friday.
We now have 8,418 applications that have been approved. These persons are now free to make their bookings on any available flight. However, there are 1,355 applicants for which health and immigration authorities are awaiting the home quarantine assessment questions to be answered. We have sent out multiple emails reminding and asking for this information, and I am making a special appeal to these persons to provide it as soon as possible. We are not able to process your application without this information.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness has declared 2 new states of public emergency in the island. The SOEs were declared in Kingston Central and Kingston Western Police Divisions, where Holness says there have been increases in criminal activities since the 2nd quarter of the year. The SOEs will last for 14 days.
This will connect the states of public emergency existing in the Kingston East and St. Andrews South police divisions, creating an effective security corridor along the waterfront from Bull Bay in the east to Ferry in the west. The space now declared has seen increased criminal activity in the second quarter of this year. These areas, if left unchecked, have shown historically that they can spiral to chaotic ends, even having national disruptive impact. We are also observing that the gangs in these areas are not confining themselves to traditional geographical boundaries within community locations, operations, and affiliations. This presents the possibility of super gangs emerging through collaboration, and this creates a platform for the insemination of more nefarious and foreign criminal activity.
He says that there has also been an increase of extortion in these police divisions,
especially around the market districts and the South Coast Highway Improvement Project, which has started along the Harbourview through to Bull Bay route. At the launch of this project, I was clear that we will not allow criminals or politically connected persons to extort, hold up, or otherwise threaten the work in this area in any way. This is a national project, and the government will deal decisively with anyone who seeks to disrupt or otherwise interfere with the smooth operation of this road development project, which has been long anticipated and extremely beneficial to the people of Jamaica.
The Prime Minister was speaking at a virtual press conference from the Office of the Prime Minister in St. Andrew. Members of the opposition have laid out concerns about the effectiveness of the states of emergencies in volatile areas. However, Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson argues that the SOEs are warranted. He maintains that the high level of violence in two divisions is at a scale and nature that greatly endangers public safety.
74% of all murders in these divisions are attributed to gang activities. When we examine the broader picture, almost 6 months into 2020, we see signs of success in the implementation of our policing strategies. As at June the 12th, major crimes have declined by 14% overall. Robberies are down 13%, break-ins down 23%, rape is down 29%, and larceny has declined by 32%. Notwithstanding this, we are seeing a much more coordinated attempt by criminal enterprises across Kingston and St. Andrew to coordinate their activities and create a much more unified response to how they make their illegal gains from these commercial areas. The use of states of public emergency has never been intended to be an alternative to other policing strategies, but an addition to them. And so we still continue to do all of the other policing activities, and in particular activities directed towards capturing and convicting gang members.
The boundaries of the newly announced SOEs are as follows.
To the west, the boundary extends from the coastline by the Petrojam oil refinery in a northeasterly direction onto East Avenue, then onto Maxfield Avenue to the intersection of Russell Road. The northern boundary extends along Russell Road in an easterly direction from the intersection of Maxfield Avenue and Russell Road to its intersection with Lyndhurst Road and Retirement Road. The boundary then extends southeasterly along Lyndhurst Road to its intersection with Slipe Road, and southerly along Slipe Road to the intersection of Torrington Road. The boundary continues easterly along Torrington Road to Heroes Circle and continues along the northern perimeter of Heroes Circle to its intersection with Marasca Road. The boundary then extends slightly north along Marasca Road, then easterly along Connolly Avenue, then onto Dames Drive to the intersection with South Kemp Road. The eastern boundary extends in a southerly direction along South Kemp Road, then onto Port Royal Street to the coast. The southern boundary extends westerly along the coastline of Kingston, then along the St. Andrew coastline to the starting point at the Petrojan oil refinery.
The Transport Operators Development Sustainable Service is threatening to withdraw services if its demands for a fare increase and improved conditions at public transport centers are not met soon. The TODSS is demanding that the lack of public transport centers be addressed with immediate effect, and that the Jamaica Urban Transit sub-franchise fees be cut by 50% due to the present COVID-19 pandemic. In a release, the group says plans will be publicized outlining what they plan to declare on Monday, June 22, Black Monday Stand Down, which will see a withdrawal of service to get the government to respond to the plight of the public transport sector. The National Health Fund is spending $380 million Jamaican dollars to construct and equip two major health projects, a district health center in Buff Bay, Portland, and a laboratory and physiotherapy building at the Onoto Bay Hospital in St. Mary. Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton joined West Portland Member of Parliament Darrell Vaz and Member of Parliament for Southeast St. Mary Dr. Norman Dunn at both recent groundbreaking ceremonies. Customers will soon have easy access to fresh produce as the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries is establishing food marts at strategic locations across the island. Minister without portfolio in the ministry, J.C. Hutchinson, made the disclosure at last week's handover of agricultural inputs to St. Catherine farmers at a forum in Dunkeld in the parish. Hutchinson says food marts will be established in Westmoreland, St. James, St. Mary and Portland. Minister Hutchinson also says the government has allocated $1 billion to the Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA, for productivity incentives. He says the programs being implemented by RADA will ensure that production is not only sustained but drastically improved. Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie provided an update on the reopening of theme parks and zoos.
We are also moving to open theme parks and zoos across the country. There are 26 such establishments throughout the country. The similar protocol where only 50% of the full capacity will be allowed at any time. The protocol governing the use must be placed, so we are ensuring that proper signage be established in all locations. Temperature check must be done for all guests and staff on entrance to the facility. Each facility must put in place sanitization stations for the proper washing of hands and physical distancing. There's around approximately 157 rafters in two major rafting areas of the country, in the Rio Grande in Portland and in Mart in Trelawney. Rafting will commence on a daily basis from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, the usual signage must be placed on the entrance to the facilities. Temperature checks must be done, the wearing of masks. The raft captains and rafters must wear masks at all times.
The minister was speaking at a virtual press conference over the weekend. Gabriel Thompson will now bring you up to speed with news from the financial markets. Let's go to the business report.
In Friday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 761 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 76 stocks, of which 37 advanced, 27 declined, and 12 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 41 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services, AMG Packaging and Paper, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, Burrito Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, and Caribbean Cream Limited. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 11.5 million units, followed by Pulse Investments Limited with 4.3 million units and the Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with 1.8 million units. Now for the foreign exchange, the US dollar on Friday, June 12 ended trading at $140.72. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $105.31. The pound sterling traded for $179.56, and the euro ended trading at $163.20. Oil prices fell on Monday as new coronavirus infections hit China, Japan, and the United States, adding to concerns that a resurgence of the virus could hamper a recovery in fuel demand. Brent crude futures were down 15 cents to settle at $38.58 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 49 cents to $35.77 a barrel. And that's it for the business report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, as Barbados reopens its borders, it has outlined a new policy for passengers from low-risk destinations. We get the details in this Barbados Today news report.
Passengers arriving on flights originating from countries classified as low risk for COVID-19 cases are now being allowed to quarantine at home. The new policy, implemented by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, went into effect over the weekend with the arrival of 15 passengers on Caribbean Airlines, comprising mostly students from the University of the West Indies, Mona and St. Augustine campuses. On arrival, they were swabbed, interviewed and informed of the requirements for home quarantine, which include confinement to their residences and daily monitoring for symptoms by public health officers for 14 days. The new policy currently applies to people whose flights originate in parts of the Caribbean and other similar low-risk countries. All other arriving passengers are required to quarantine at a state-managed facility or a designated hotel at their own expense. Now, the new policy comes ahead of today's talks between the government and the social partnership on border closures and reopening. During last week's address to the nation, Prime Minister Mia Mottley revealed that a final decision on the Grantley Adams International Airport and the Bridgetown Port would be made following those discussions.
The Black Lives Matter protests that have ballooned globally from the death of George Floyd in the United States has touched St. Lucia as well. Colby DeVoe of HTS News Force reports.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Those who feel it know it. And certainly some of those gathered at Constitution Park on Friday, 12th June, had heartbreaking stories to tell about loved ones killed with no justice served. Mother of the slain, Botham Jean, a killing that rocked the world when Jean lost his life in his own apartment following an intrusion by ex-Dallas officer Amber Guyger. Jean says her presence at the BLM rally was to stand in solidarity and to call attention to racial injustice.
As you all know, my son suffered as a result of the color of his skin and as a result of police brutality in Dallas, Texas. So it touches my family, it touches my country, it touches my church, and therefore we must stand in solidarity with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and with the several lives that have been killed at the hands of police or at the hands of white supremacists in the United States.
Jean argues that those who say the issues faced in the United States are different from those faced in St. Lucia need to be aware of the strong ties between the two locations. She is also alarmed by the high-profile killings in St. Lucia that remain unsolved.
I am also here to demand accountability in St. Lucia for the lives of those who have been taken by police. For Arnold Joseph, whose life was taken on Chaussee Road. For Shakadan Daniel, who was found hanging in a cell in a police station. For the lives of Kimberly Williams, for the lives of Victor Morris. We have to demand accountability of our police so that we can make St. Lucia a much safer place.
Aunt of deceased Kimberly Williams de Leon, a mother of two viciously slain in her home by an unknown assailant, says she too took to the streets to protest the lack of transparency in her niece's case.
I'm here to work with the people and on behalf of my niece, because I suppose there's no justice for nobody, whether in this country or any country whatsoever. Everybody does what they want and goes scot-free. It will be 2 years in October, and we cannot hear anything for Kimberly. Her life is black also. I will say COVID-18, a virus hit her, and the virus is still at large. You cannot cure the virus, you cannot kill the virus, you cannot package the virus, you cannot do nothing with the virus. But we need answers for that virus.
De Leon's files were turned over to the Director of Public Prosecution, Dasrian Green, in July 2019. To date, there is no update on the matter. Colby DeVoe, HDS News Force.
After 3 months of COVID-19 stay-at-home restrictions, churches in Trinidad and Tobago are now having services again. Church on the Rock in Morvant has had its first service with some new protocols introduced.
This will now be the common sight at the Church on the Rock as members get accustomed to the new normal. Designed to accommodate 250 members, they now have 2 services at 8:30 and 11 o'clock, as they split the congregation into 2. However, members of the congregation were more than happy to be back out at church.
Man, it feels great. I mean, just seeing everybody for the first time in flesh, because we have been connected via Zoom, but seeing everybody in flesh for the first time, it feels great. I mean, there's a little restriction, but you're still glad to see, everybody in flesh, in person.
Some of the other adjustments include a shortening of the services to 1 hour.
Well, we are custom worshiping, for, a length of time, and anybody knows how to worship God. You worship Him, you dance, you shout, you sing. The 1 hour is kind of crunching it for us because we are custom, just giving Him our all, I feel we could relax a little bit and give us a little more time, but 1 hour for now.
Reverend Benjamin Agard explained to TTT they paid a company to sanitize the entire facility. The contractual arrangements ensures the sanitation lasts for 7 days, but the congregation will continue to sanitize the most touched areas.
The Minister of Communication is a dear friend, and so we are doing our best. We wouldn't want to embarrass her, so we are doing our very best to ensure that we follow all the protocol and the guidelines. But it feels very good to be back out.
During the sermon, Reverend Agard said, while he observes the health and safety protocols, he does not fear COVID-19, as having faith does not leave room for fearing the virus. Ian Wason, TTT News.
Over in Guyana, the Finance Ministry says it will assist the Guyana Sugar Corporation. The corporation had approached the government for a bailout. Calon Rover reports.
A statement by the ministry on Wednesday stated that the prevailing national circumstances, coupled with the challenges of COVID-19 and a reduced national income, has rendered the Treasury incapable of providing a bailout to Gaisuku. In this regard, the ministry reminds of a $30 billion bond backed by NISIL's assets and guaranteed by the government of Guyana was secured through NISIL to retrofit and revitalize the 3 remaining sugar estates. During the period July 2018 to February 2020, over $9 billion was disbursed to Gaisuku to fund its capital and operational expenditure, much of which was outside the terms of the bond. Additionally, NISIL, through the National Purpose Unit, sold the lands that were vested to it and garnered deposits of $2.1 billion. The full sum was used to offset bond payments that became due in May 2020. The balance of $1.5 billion for the lands will be paid over to NISIL when the vesting orders are signed and gazetted. It is expected that part of the sum will go towards a bond repayment, which is due on July 4th, 2020, and the remainder to Gaisuku. Gaisuku also generates its own income. According to the Finance Ministry, another disbursement is expected in the coming days, and NISIL, Gaisuku, and the syndicated lenders are urged to work assiduously to resolve any bottlenecks. Government said it remains committed to making Gaisuku a viable partner. For InfoHub, I am Kellon Rover.
In sports, reggae boy Leon Bailey is now a father. Bailey's girlfriend, Stephanie Hope, gave birth to a boy in Germany on the weekend. Craig Butler, the adoptive father and agent of the national footballer, believes the arrival of Bailey's firstborn will be a life-changing experience for the player. Bailey, who has had an injury-plagued season, missed the last 2 games of his German Bundesliga club. He has scored 5 goals and has had 2 assists in 19 matches this season. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thanks so much for watching.